Welcome everybody to Christians Against Religion. I'm your host, Ethan Foster.
I'm your host, Steve.
And I don't know why that threw me off course. It's been a minute since we
I never say my last name on here. I'm just Steve.
All right. Well, shut up, Steve. Okay. Well, this brings me into the topic for today. Whenever you have a co-host that causes you annoyance and suffering, and yet you have great faith in the good Lord to deliver you someone better as a host. Oh, why does it not come?
I'm sorry for your suffering, Ethan.
But in all seriousness, and the reason I bring this up is because I was scrolling through Instagram, and a good friend of mine, she was posting about a relative or somebody, I don't know, the family or friend connection, passed away due to cancer, right? And so it was a repost, right? So she put it on a story of another person's post, and so I actually took the time to read through the description of the post, and basically it was fascinating and also quite challenging and helpful, and how she was continually praying, and people were telling her, if you have enough faith, she'll get better. If you have enough faith, God will heal her and whatnot, and that didn't happen, you know. And so her post was just dealing with stuff of that sort. So I found that interesting to discuss. So but before you say something, I want to pose this to you. When Jesus talks about to his disciples, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. If you ask anything in my name, I'll do it. Does that apply to things like this? Was that only for the disciples, or do we just are we not faithful enough to the size of a mustard seed?
No, I think that's talking about like the power of faith, that there is great power in faith, but it's not saying like whatever you so please and wish and have faith in is going to come true. Yeah. You know, it's not like name it and claim it type of a situation. Yeah. I don't agree with that. But I think the point was that like faith can do a whole lot, a whole heck of a lot, whether that's spiritual, talking about like, I don't know, if you have a little faith, you can be saved perhaps, or maybe an actual physical miracle. You know, I think it could be both ways, but I don't think it's like it should be put into the context of, if you have enough faith, somebody can be somebody's going to be healed. I mean, they can be healed, but it's not like if they're not healed, it's because you didn't have enough faith. Like that puts people in a bad situation, and that's how you lose faith right there.
Yeah, it is.
Is by framing it in that box.
And so this also brings me to the question of, whenever someone is healed miraculously of a ailment of some sort, whether it be a severe form of cancer or they get into a bad car wreck. So I had a friend a few weeks ago that got flung out of a truck going 40 miles an hour, and we didn't think he'd make it. But the other day he was just texting me nice about all the problems that he's having, but he's going to make a full recovery, right? And so
wear your seatbelts, everyone.
Well, it wasn't that. He was in the trunk of the bed of the truck.
Why was he in there? Don't wear your seatbelts, everyone. They don't have seatbelts in the bed of the truck.
This is all besides the point. But we always attribute the healing to God working a miracle, right? Whereas if he were to have died, a lot of times we would attribute that to God. And so I don't even have necessarily a question with that. It's just a statement of curiosity. Should we attribute the death of someone to God doing his work, or should we just say fallen world?
It's a good question. Fallen world. But really? I mean, I'm just thinking of like, okay, somebody's kid dies, and then what do you say to him? Do you just say, like, it's in God's plan. Like I don't know.
Those are hard ones.
Yeah.
Because I think back to when a good friend of mine passed away, and I was talking with people who were hurt by it, me included, and this was how I got through it. I twisted verses in the Bible to help myself, which is wholly wrong. But that's what I did, admittedly. And so I don't know what to do with that. Because it puts you in an awkward situation socially, but it also doesn't help the people that are suffering.
Yeah.
I remember when Sean was doing that debate with, well, not even a debate, but it had the audience members, they could question him, and one of the guys was challenging him, and Sean said, okay, look, if you were at an atheist, this atheist guy dies, and you're at his funeral, you're speaking at this funeral, would you say that he's going to hell? The guy's like, well, I wouldn't put it that way. He's like, why not? That's where he is, isn't he? You know?
According to him, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Well, I would say he's in a better place.
Yeah.
I guess.
I would say, and I'm going to disagree with you a bit on what you said earlier, I think that it is God's will. Well, not even that. I think that God does miracles to save people, and then when it's your time, he calls you home, right? That's how I think of it. I think God is, to use a Calvinist word, sovereign over these things, right? But that's just a thought.
So, okay. So he's causing them to die or live then every time?
Sure.
Okay.
But that brings up some really hard things, though.
Yeah.
It is so tough to... I might have to think, because that brings up like genocide and all that. Does God ordain that?
Yeah.
Really?
No, I'm not saying yes,
well,
he does.
I know,
I'm just saying
but like
that's what brings that up.
I know it does. Man. Oh, okay. So we have a fallen world. I'm trying to think this through for the audience. I'm giving my thought process. So Adam and Eve fall, right? So death comes into the world.
Yes.
That is not of God.
Right.
But we could say that God orchestrates that evil thing for good. Could we say that?
I would say he can bring good of any situation, but it's not like he wants that to happen so he can bring good. I don't think I would go that far. Like, because there are people that would say like the child getting run over by a tractor trailer, like, was God wanted that to happen so that he could make good things happen, but I don't think he wants the child to die by a tractor trailer, you know, which that logic will bring you to.
I wouldn't say he wants to, but he can use those horrible incidents that are a result of a fallen world to bring about the good of his people and glory for him.
Yes, but it's not like saying it's his plan, so to speak, is not. I don't know that that's the right way to go. Take this to phrase that. Okay,
so we'll go with that. But, and I don't know if this is any different. I think that it's God orchestrating it towards his good. So the fact that evil exists, he's using this stuff that's already in existence to bring about good in the end.
Sure.
Right?
Yes. But I wouldn't say that to the grieving parent.
Well, no. We can go back to that. I'm just saying, like, in a general, like, truth statement.
In a general sense, I think that type of stuff happens because it's a fallen world.
Yes.
And people will, be consumed with darkness and do dark things that are not of God. But I'm not saying that's part of God's plan. I don't think is the right statement in most cases. I would just say it's a fallen world, and that's the reason that stuff happens. Now, God can work miracles in those situations, but I think a better question would be, why doesn't he work miracles in all those situations?
Okay.
And that, I think, would be more of an interesting question versus, is it in his plan? Wouldn't like calling it his plan mean, because then you start thinking like, okay, he wants the genocide to happen, or whatever. I don't agree with that.
That is quite an interesting point. So why why doesn't God do a miracle in every situation? Well, one, it wouldn't be a miracle, right? That would be the first objection to it. But two, I mean, then we wouldn't have a fall, right? If he would save everyone in that kind of way, then there was no fall, right?
So why does he save some then? And not others.
Well, remember, they eventually die, right? So, I mean, the wages of sin is death, but
not if the uploading your brain to computers works out. But yeah,
eventually that'll die too. Once the sun consumes the earth. I mean, it's an inevitable.
Once you run out of battery.
Yeah, it's an inevitable reality that we're all gonna die, right? And so, if we're saved in some point of time, right? So, again, going with a terminal cancer person, and there's a miraculous drug that reverses all that, right? God saves them then, right? But they're still gonna die eventually, right? So I would say God works a miracle because he has a certain purpose for them to do whatever he needs them to do in that next bit of their life. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of timing.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, you could see it that way for sure.
And the other thing we have... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, no. The kid dies from the tractor trailer. Maybe they could have died a year before that when they were less than a year old. You know, it is a matter of timing, but I'm just wondering, like, I don't know.
Yeah, and, you know, James White puts it in a good way. Which sometimes is rare, but yeah, it was very helpful for me because him and Kwaku were debating one time, and he's like, look, we don't look from eternity, God does, right? So we only see our picture here and now, but God sees the whole picture. He sees it from the beginning to the end, and he sees like the methods of getting to the end goal, right? And so that's a struggle of faith and trust too. Are we going to put our faith in God to work things out in the end? Because remember, the faith is the faith is the essence of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. We can't see it, right? But we have to put our trust in God to solve those things, and that's the tough part. Because it's hard to say to someone, look, you have to trust God, right? But in the end, that's what we're called to do.
I'm just wondering what do you say to the parent of the kid? Yeah. Is that what you say? Have trust in God? I don't know.
I mean, so going back to my friend that died, I talked to his dad a little bit at his funeral, and he said, look, man, this sucks, but I know this is going to work out for good. That's what he said. So, and
the father gives you the middle finger and says, get out of my funeral.
I mean, that's what the father said. So,
wait, the father said that?
Yeah, the father said that. Yeah, I didn't say that to the father.
Like
I didn't know. No. I was like, oh, no, the dad said that.
No, that's good.
Right. And so, like, yeah, it really does suck. Right. I mean, it sucked for me being there, but that was the comfort of it all. Right. And that's how me and my friends comforted each other during that all. Is like, look, it hurts now, but God works through in the end. What I am wondering is, like, what do you say to a parent and that's an atheist or whatnot? Because there's nothing. It's like, okay, your molecules, your child made up of molecules and has no soul and no purpose is in a better place that they have no knowledge about, right?
Right.
So there's no hope in that, but it's different when it comes to a religious person.
Well, they don't have to believe it, but you can give them your view. Unless you believe he's going to be burning in hell forever, then I wouldn't recommend speaking up about that.
Yeah,
but I don't agree with that. So, it depends on the Christian and what they believe, I guess. Mm-hmm. If you want to tell a grieving mother that their son or daughter is burning in hell currently, good luck with that. See how that works out.
Yeah, and it's
great.
It's interesting how I never see Jesus use that kind of language, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, he gives pictures and types of judgment to come, of what separation from God is like, but he never says to someone grieving something any of that sort, and I don't see that from any of the apostles either. And people died all the time back then, still do now, but more so then. But I have another question, right? So and now it just slipped with me. It was something about cancer. That's all I remember.
Well, back on that quick, what I would say to the grieving mother or father is that God will reconcile all to himself. So I think no matter what, your kid is in a superior place than here. So that is the comfort that I have.
Yeah. I remember the question now. So let's say God does ordain people to die, right? Why does it have to be a traumatic, long death, right? Someone that's suffering from Alzheimer's for 20 years.
Alzheimer's?
Suffering
from old timers.
You and my dad, man. You guys know what I mean. Okay, so I'll say dementia then, because that's what my great grandma's suffering from now. That lasts a long time.
Yeah, it sucks.
But you're gonna die from that. There's no reversing it. Or the person that's or the person that's suffering from cancer for years and years, or any chronic form of disease. Why can't God just take them away if that's his will, that they must die in that instant?
Well, I mean, either way, it still doesn't change the fact that it's a fallen world that we talked about before. And for whatever reason, God doesn't save every single person, but then it wouldn't be a miracle, like you said. And as I've said plenty of times before, like, if everything was good, nothing would be. So I'm not saying that the reason that somebody's suffering is because of the contrast of good and evil, but I mean, like, it would just be a paradise if everyone would be saved and live happily ever after, which is what a lot of atheists will get mad at. But I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's not love if you're forced to love, right? And having everything good and great and whatever, that's not going to be, I don't know, the value, I guess, of loving God would essentially disappear. So I don't know, it's kind of an incomplete answer, but it's more just points on the answer, I guess, or like talking points about it. But what do you think?
I mean, I would say that God uses those instances of horrible suffering and trauma to bring about good, which is hard to see. It really is, especially in those moments. And some people, it develops true character and true hard work ethic, and people who want to change the world. And then some people it ruins and collapses their whole identity, And so again, this is the aspect where I take faith in. I take faith in God to work things out, even if I can't understand the methods of why he does it.
I suppose. I don't have much to say on it at this time.
You don't?
No, besides what I already said, because I don't know, I'd like to formulate that a little more and think on that a little further to give probably a better answer, but
okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, well, this is a good time to move into a similar topic, dealing with something that's very common in our nation right now and other developed nations: suicide. Right? So one.
I thought you were going to say obesity.
That's another episode. You know what? You could just watch what Sean said on Keepers of the Fat.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Good episode.
Yeah, I mean, I can't be that mean and funny at the same time. So yeah. I'll leave the obesity talk to Sean.
But suicide.
Yeah, so one, is it sinful? Two, I want to kind of explore what you think the cause is in our country of it.
In our country?
Yeah.
Or in general?
Or okay, in general.
What the cause of suicide is?
Yeah, what's the cause of like higher suicide rates? Why is society gets easier to live in?
Country music.
I didn't know you hated country music that bad.
It's proven to be the most depressing form of music and cause the most suicides out of any other genre.
Oh,
look it
gosh.
up. Anyways, lack of challenge, I guess, and just depression, and I think those mental illnesses go along with having it a bit easier in society because you're not distracted on how you're going to eat the next day or whatever. I would imagine, I'm talking out my butt here. Someone look up the statistics on it, but I would imagine suicide is a lot greater now than when people didn't have quite as much and had to work a lot harder for a lot less. I would imagine
because it created purpose.
But I want to know what the suicide rates were in the Great Depression.
I do too,
because I'm not sure. But also probably the low birth rates. So people have less kids, so they have less future to keep going for, I would imagine. That could be a part of it. I don't know if any of this correlates, so I'm curious on the stats of it. Why? What's it? Why? Why are we asking?
Why am I asking? Well,
what do you think?
Because it has to do with the topic.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What
way?
I mean, it's just going into the topic of suicide is a broad topic.
Yeah.
And so I felt like those are the best ways to go through it.
Okay.
Never question me, Steve.
I won't until I do.
Well, the first question I asked you, I do believe it is sinful in some form or another.
Did you ask me if it was sinful?
Yeah.
I thought you just asked me why.
That was the first question.
Oh, I thought you asked me why it's more prevalent now.
Yeah. That was the second question.
Oh.
But why more prevalent? I think all those reasons you listed are part of this broad thing that I think secularism has caused.
It's sinful?
Yeah.
You know what? What if you're about to die and you kill yourself?
That's
beforehand?
different. That's a bit different.
Is it?
Yeah, that's different causation because you're about to die.
Is it the suicide then, or what else? What's the actual sin?
The killing of oneself.
I don't think that's a sin.
You don't think it's a sin?
I would say the faith. If you have a lack of faith and that's causing you to do it, then sure.
Okay. Well, I would say it's a form of murder of oneself.
I guess, but it's a lack of love for yourself. Isn't that pride?
You're supposed to love yourself in a non-prideful form. Yes. I think Jesus said something about that, actually.
Well, here's how I see suicide.
Okay.
Is that it's I find it hard to say it in that way, suicide is sin because it's killing yourself.
Okay.
I think that's really it's like drinking is a sin because it's drinking. It's it doesn't really answer.
I don't know if it's that dumb,
I don't think
Steve.
It kind of is similar. I don't think it addresses the proper reason or reason why it would be a sin to do any of those things. Drinking would be a sin if it causes you to not love.
Okay.
Right. That's when I would say it's a sin, or a lack of faith for God to give you the happiness that
I'll take that.
And with killing yourself, I mean, if things are hard and you don't have faith in God to help you through it, then that would be the sin because of faithlessness, or lack of love for your family that now you're leaving behind. In those ways, you could call it a sin.
Okay,
but it's not the suicide. It's the underlying things.
But it is the suicide because that causes all those.
It is the suicide, but it's for those reasons. But not all suicides might have those reasons. You know what I mean?
Okay. Also,
because then you would get into the point where you can't kill yourself if you're about to be killed. Because you don't have faith in God to, I don't know, somehow work it out. But I don't think I would agree with that.
Okay, so
I think it's very situation dependent.
Okay, yeah, I'd agree with that. But just like everything, situation dependent. We can talk about assisted suicide.
That's why I'm not a Sith. I don't speak in absolutes.
With the absolute.
Yes.
Prequel garbage.
I never speak in absolutes.
Prequel garbage. And notice, I have to interject real quick.
This is Star Wars, by the way.
No one, when we asked the question, which Star Wars is better, the originals or the prequels, no one commented, so I'm giving you guys a second chance. Which Star Wars is better, the prequels or the originals?
Prequels.
Yeah, originals. Wow. But you know what? Steve has more fans than me on this show, so Steve might win. But okay,
I don't think
in response to that, I'd agree that the faithlessness, when it comes to God working things out, would be the main sin of it. And I thought of that right when you were talking, because I'm thinking, okay, well, it brings up a good point, but
I think it's more helpful to frame it in that way than anyways when talking about suicide. I don't like when people are talking about the specific thing as the sin, like suicide. Like, it's like an overgeneralization, and it's not really properly communicating the reason, like what's actually the sin, like saying drinking is a sin, or like saying all those things that we've talked about many times. When we break it down, it's a lack of faith and love, and those are where we find our sins.
yes.
So saying suicide is a sin, I just don't like it because of the place that modern day Christians have taken that to like such extremes, and like and been sinning in saying that to people anyways. Like some kid that sadly commits suicide, and then they tell the parent, your son is a sinner, your son was sinning, and like just being not loving to the parents or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a time when speaking truth can fail in love.
It definitely can.
So,
or just the way you say it too.
Yeah.
But like there's certain times when you have those types of discussions, you know.
Yeah, but not at the funeral.
Yeah, I know.
With a megaphone or something.
Yeah, be like, man, I'm so sad because this kid's in hell. But no, I want to explore the second point a bit, because I think, again, agreeing with all the reasons you listed, I think the general idea is that it's secularism. I think it destroys any purpose in life, because you can create purpose, right? Like you have philosophies under the branch of nihilism, but that's you creating purpose, right? And in the end, being thinking people, you're like, why am I doing all this, right? So like listening to my debate teacher talk about her purpose in life is like having kids, teaching others. I'm like, why are you wasting your time doing that, you know? Because I think that's admirable, but because God has given us authority to do these things, you know, and God has given us purpose in this world. But if you remove God, you're a bunch of molecules doing nonsense. Yeah. Right. So it makes no sense to me in that sense, and to a lot of people, it makes no sense. And that's why we see our society doing things that create purpose, particularly with things like pride and all of that. It's creating a new sense of religion and anything but God. Yeah, it's a symptom of the greater things that come with faithlessness, I would say. So yeah, I could see that for sure. But there's also plenty of... I'm curious, what's the secular suicide rate versus the... religious suicide or Christian suicide rate? Because I would imagine they'd be pretty similar. I don't know if that's necessarily a correlation. Well, I'll give you a correlation in terms of Western society has a much higher suicide rate than a random place in Africa that's highly poverty stricken. Yeah, so I think it's because of I don't think it's necessarily the lack of religion, but more the lack of distractions, that striving to get more money and having kids and all that stuff. It's like what I said at the beginning. I think that's the real reason. So let me put it at both then. We need a statistician to help us out here. As prosperity goes up, right, secularism has gone up too. These things have been moving up towards each other. So it's a result of both, I think, because they can play different aspects too. Because this is the only statistic I know, and I don't want to bring up a whole different discussion. We can do it in another episode. So we could take the transgender community. Gender dysphoria is a real thing. A lot of people commit suicide from it. It's around 40%. Okay. Right? Now, after transitioning, it stays around the same. Right? Yeah. So there's this missing thing, right? That because obviously that is not working. I don't think it's faithlessness. I think it's no. I'm saying it's lack of purpose. It's lack of like a center goal, you know?
I guess. I mean, I would attribute that to mental illness more than anything.
Well, sure.
If there's like because that's, I think, what the main thing with suicide anyways.
Well, sure.
Like depression and stuff.
But like, what are the results of those? What causes those depressions, you know?
Depression? I don't know.
No, depression's caused by stuff, man.
Well, but it wouldn't really be a mental illness if it was just like caused by stuff, would it? Isn't it just can it happen naturally in the brain?
It can, but it can also be caused by things too.
Okay. I don't
like
know.
PTSD is caused by extreme
trauma.
Yeah, trauma.
It's post-traumatic stress disorder.
But that's a mental illness that has a cause, right?
Yeah.
You have PTSD because you were in the war in Iraq, right? So I would say that that religion in and of itself, like strict religion and not true Christianity, also gives this cause to people committing suicide because they feel like they have no branch out.
Yeah.
But it also, in a way, and I've seen this happen in my own life, a good friend of mine who was in a really strict Mormonism had severe depression, went very strict atheism, and eventually just had no purpose in life, and he killed himself. Right? They give you a summarized version of it. So I see it both ways. Religion has a huge effect, but also too much lack of faith has it as well. And then the prosperity thing, we're just not generating proper purpose for ourselves.
Well, I'd say either way, if you have faith in God to work these things out for you, you'll be potentially better off than because I mean, if it's a mental illness, so like it goes back to the like having enough faith to cure your cancer. It's not always going to happen, and if it's a physical illness in your brain, I mean, you can't always fix that. So
you're correct.
So that's why I'm saying it the way I am, but and that's also why I would say, like, if it's a disease that's causing their suicide or whatever, would you still say it's a sin and lack of faith if they're physically not able to?
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Because in that case, I would say, I don't know. And
I'd rebut with that. What about mental illnesses that make people psychopathic and serial killers? You know, we hold them responsible for their actions.
Not
right?
When the person has cancer pressing up against their brain, and they're a good
I think that's a bit different.
Is it though?
Well,
because either way, it's like it's a physical thing.
Sure.
I'm not saying people aren't responsible for their actions. I'm not saying what I'm saying, but I think that's why we leave the judging to God for all this stuff, and that's why I step away from judging in general. I'll let God do all that.
I'd agree with that.
Love and have faith on Him, anyways, for myself.
Amen. Well,
so
I'd agree with that. Anything else, Steve?
So aliens. Just kidding.
He really wants to talk about these aliens.
We'll get there again someday.
Did we not do an episode on aliens? I feel like we did.
Like, it was the last episode we did. Was
it
aliens and like when uploading your consciousness and stuff?
Oh yeah,
that was the last one we did.
Yeah, I don't remember the episodes we did.
It was too much fun. That's why time flies when you're having fun, and sometimes you forget.
Yeah, we're all ready. You guys leave us some comments about what you think. Really difficult topics today, but hopefully we handled it okay.
Yeah, you guys can also, like, if you want us to expand on certain aspects, please let us know. Because a lot of times with these general topics, it's sort of hard to get into the nitty gritty of it when it's just such a big topic. So if you have like specific things that you want us to cover, we'll happily do it. And then maybe we can. Yeah, I don't know. We're getting better as we go, but it takes time, and Ethan and I are just treading water here and living life.
Yeah. But also, we have a prayer request for Jesse's friend, for his psychosis.
For Luke's psychosis.
Yeah.
He had a psychedelically induced psychosis for 2 weeks, I believe, So, and that's really scary stuff. Are we doing a prayer from now, or are we just requesting the audience? Okay, just a request to pray for Luke's psychosis. It's a tough thing, scary. A lot of kids are taking drugs these days and having adverse effects. So, especially as we were talking about earlier with like fentanyl and stuff, and just psychedelics in general. A lot of people are trying them out and having some issues. So, tough.
I have a prayer request too, bringing back up my friend that got flung out of the truck. He's still greatly injured, bruised all over in his back, and he actually had a brain bleed too and a punctured lung, but the brain bleed has stopped, but he's blind in his left eye and he's deaf in his left ear, and his eye is so bloodshot that they might have to remove it. So pray that if they do have to remove it, that goes well, but pray that God works to heal his eye.
Yes, absolutely. And with that, we will see you next week.
Oh, make sure to go to Cult.
Cult.love, baby. www.cult.love for all your awesome... I was going to say for all your cult needs, but stands for Christian Ultra Libertarians for Truth. Go check it out. There's a lot of great resources there. This podcast will be exclusively on there relatively soon. So
we said that like 3 months ago. And
yeah, it's in the plan. So just keep that in mind. We'll try and keep posting stuff on YouTube, but yeah. So go there, become a member, subscribe, like, comment, share our stuff. Tell us what you want to hear, and we will work on it.
Yeah, give us topic ideas. We're running low, so
we do have a bunch more reaction videos to post. So sorry, we've only done the one, I think, but we meant to. We recorded a whole bunch of them. So
yeah, they're really good too.
Yeah, we will be posting those. So yeah, keep an eye out for it.
All right, and until next time, I'm Ethan Foster,
and I'm Steve,
and we'll see you next week here on Christians Against Religion.
See ya.